welcome to Local History, Legends, and Lore. I'm Julie Lugo Cerra, your host, and today our guest is Maxine Mytar. Welcome.
Thank you.
Maxine, it's always so nice to see you. Actually, today it could probably be the Maxine and Julie show. We talk so much about history on this program and about local stories that we decided today to enlist the help of Maxine and talk a little bit about how you can actually preserve your own family stories. And I really appreciate your help because I know you're helping a lot of people. You're teaching a class in it, in fact, as we'll talk about later. Maxine, you wrote The River and Beyond, which is right here. And this is a wonderful book of family memories, and it starts at your very beginnings. How did you begin this project?
Well, it began with this. In 1996, I was trying to fill the void. My husband was gone. I was rattling around in the house by myself, and it made me more aware of my own mortality. And I thought, you know, my grandchildren and their children would have no idea what it was like growing up during the Depression in Little River Village in the Midwest. And I really should set down some of those things so they'd know from whence they came. So I started writing a 71-page booklet. It's in this terrible shape because I've got a lot more material since, and I have to revise it when I have time. But
let's see the front of it. It's actually a genealogy, a family tree on the front.
Yeah. It
There
starts.
it is. We have a better shot.
Yes.
Look at that.
Yes.
Okay.
And the first third is all about this little village. Very interesting little village. At one time it had been an island. And they connected it with, they built a levee and then they built a plank road. They called it a corduroy road. A man set up a sawmill and sawed enough planks for 13 and a half miles from Canton to Liverpool. So the farmers, that's one of the packet boats that, it was such an important shipping point in the mid-1800s.
Now, where did you acquire something like that?
Oh, I don't know. I fell heir to a lot of photographs. The bottom deck usually held cattle that was being shipped out. The top deck held the passengers.
I see.
And these paddle boats plied the river day and night until the railroads came through. The railroads killed all the river traffic. And then Liverpool had to resort to, it no longer was a shipping area, but that time it was connected to the mainland, no longer an island. But it had to resort to hunting and fishing, which it just teemed with wildlife and so abundant. And it was a great place for wealthy duck hunters to come and fishermen. That was my dad in a duck blind. Now, before my first trip here, I had a picture of him, and I wanted to explain he was blowing a duck call. He was very prolific with the duck call. He could call ducks for miles around. He could even play tunes on his duck call.
Really?
He won contests all over the state, duck calling contests. So the first third of the book is all about this little village. The second third is family history, all four branches. They all came here. That's my great-grandfather Raker's family. He and his wife, he died that day the picture was taken. It was his 101st birthday.
Oh, my gosh.
And some of his children were in the background, including my grandfather. They came from Kentucky. His father had been a friend of Daniel Boone, and that he followed the wilderness trail to Kentucky. And I have a map from 1947 with, it says Raker on it. That was my maiden name. Well, we went there in 1938, and it was a log cabin. That was Raker, that log cabin that my great-grandfather had built in 1804.
So what you did apparently is you collected photographs and collected a lot of the
I had the
clips.
family Bible and another old book from 1832. Had a lot of clippings, obituaries, and over the years I'd collected these things.
I see.
So I started putting them in this book. And all four branches had come to this country either prior to or by the time of the Revolutionary War.
I see.
The Rakers came, they were mercenaries, hired, the first Raker was a mercenary, hired by the king to fight. The king didn't have enough British soldiers, and he started hiring mercenaries even before the war itself to fight the Indians, because he didn't have enough British soldiers.
So now the whole family knows all about how they got here.
Yeah, I call it the life and times of the Liverpool Rakers and how they got there.
I see.
And then the last, and the middle part has a lot of family pictures and family stories. The last part
Old Man River is at our front door, I see here.
Yes, we had floods every so often. And the next one will show the back door. It was also at the back door. Well, I guess they're not going to show it.
They don't have it. Okay.
The last part are childhood stories. And how I wove them together was started when we moved to Liverpool. And I wove the stories together with newspaper headlines to show what was happening in the country at the time.
Oh, you put it in context.
Yes.
That's
yes,
great.
Yeah. And I made I had school pictures, all kinds of pictures. Then I made about 30 copies and sent them to family and relatives. And about the time I was finishing this, I saw a notice in the newspaper, a writing class, life story writing class starting in Westchester. And I thought, you know, maybe that would help me. Maybe that would be a good idea. So I went the first day, enrolled, and now I'm the last charter member. There was one other woman, but she moved to Poway, so she doesn't come very often.
Oh.
But I still go.
That's great.
And because of that writing class, I finally had so many stories that some of them talked me into doing my own book. And it spans 80 years. And our group has done 3 group books since then. The first one was this, Our Lives in Bits and Pieces, 22 contributors.
And you self-published it?
Yeah.
Great.
The second one is Patchwork of Life, A Quilt of Stories, 31 contributors. And the last one was last summer. We did all World War II stories. We remember World War II. They're all true World War II stories. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, I'll tell you how I got started.
Okay.
When I went away to college, I had to learn to cook. And so I vowed that I would never go through this or put my own children through this. So when my daughter was beginning to get to the age where she could cook, I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to write a little cookbook for her. The glitch was that I learned to cook from my mother in 20 minutes because she sat with me as I was getting ready to leave for UCSB and said, well, you need a little of this and you'll need a little of that. And it was
a pinch of this and
it was hard. So I learned how to cook just like she did. And so when Michelle was about 10 years old, I started, and for 6 months I measured everything because I cooked that way. Well, by the time I got finished measuring, other than the air being blue, I actually had a bunch of recipes on my computer that were working out nicely, and I had it all set up for her. Well, the way I formatted it was my very first Macintosh computer. So I did this whole thing on 8.5 by 11 and printed it out on my less than laser printer. And I hand painted a folder for her, a three-ring binder, and put some flowers and goodies on the outside. And then I slipped them in sleeves so that when she was cooking, if she messed it up, it wouldn't be a problem. You could just wipe it off.
Great idea.
So that was fun. But before I put them in the sleeves, I went through and started writing notes on them about where the recipes came from. So, for example, when I did the albondiga soup, I wrote that my grandfather, who was on the German side, could not pronounce albondiga soup. So when he'd come over to visit, he'd say, "Make me some of those bone diggers." So I wrote that in the margins. And then there were things like my Auntie Vicente taught me how to make tortillas, so I included her tortilla recipe. And then my grandfather on the other side would stop by when my mom was flipping tortillas, and he would say to her, "Now you save 2 of those tortilleras for me because I need new soles for my shoes." So as things progressed, I thought, this is really fun because she's getting to know a little bit about the family.
Exactly.
So that's kind of how it started with me, and I got going with that, and eventually Michelle took her cookbook away to college with her. And then when she went to Italy and studied her 3rd year of college, we were much more progressive, and we had gotten to the point where we had it on disc. Mm-hmm. So she took her laptop with it on disc, and we had continued to add recipes. And the upshot of that was basically my cookbook, which is Fire, Burn, and Cauldron Bubble.
Great title.
Well, those were my muttering words. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire, burn, and cauldron bubble. 3 witches.
Witch of the West.
Yeah, put me in the kitchen and I have a good time. So anyway, I did that for her, and then I included a lot of family photos, which was fun. And so everybody, I tried to include some things. Okay, now we're getting to another part. But I did things like Mother's chocolate chip cookies, which is another thing that I did. And that's a picture of my mother, but it's the same idea. I published that and had a good time with that. And then from there, I got to the point where I decided my nieces didn't know my parents very well. So they were always asking questions, mostly about my brother and I when we were growing up. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, what they were doing is they were digging for funny stories. So, they really enjoyed the fact that we only found the canary feathers in the toilet, and we still are trying to nail that on my brother. But, it's not going to stick. So, anyhow, I started, and what I did is I started very simply. I just took a folder. I took a yellow pad, and I put names on each page. And then I put, under Carlos, my brother, the canary story, the canary in the toilet story. And then under my mother, I started different things. And I just kept going for about a year. And at the same time, what helped me was I went through family pictures. And when I was going through the family pictures, that brought back more memories. And I was able to add more to the lists. Mm-hmm. So, for example, my brother, when he was a little boy, we grew up on Farragut Drive in Culver City. When he was a little guy, he became very irritable and decided that he was going to run away from home. So my mother, being the smart mom that she was, helped him pack. And so she sent him out the door with his lunch. And he carried that out our front gate, and then he went to the right over to Van Buren Place. And so she, of course, sent me to watch him make sure that he didn't get hurt. Mm-hmm. And I'm 6 years older, so, I was the consummate big sister. So I would watch him walk to the corner, and then he would go on down to the next corner, and then I would hit that corner and keep an eye on him there. And then she'd call somebody like Nona Smith, who lived on that corner, so she'd watch him. Mm-hmm. And then she called somebody in the next block, and so I followed him. This kid just came around the block. He didn't go anyplace else, some running away from home. So I said, I thought, this is really odd. All I'm doing is running around the block with him. So he came into the gate again. He completed his block. He walked in the door, and I don't know how old he was, but he was little. And he just had this terribly disgusted look on his face. And my mom said, "Oh, I thought you were running away from home. What happened?" And he said, "Well, you won't let me cross any streets." So I had to put that in for my nieces so that they knew a little bit about what their daddy was like. What it transitioned into for me, too, was not just letting them know about stories about Carlos and I growing up, but also about the folks and how they raised us. So, like, my mother came from the South. She was a blue-eyed blonde from Marietta, Georgia. And we had an orange tree in the yard. And the orange tree was useless. It had the worst tasting oranges you've ever had. And lemons were better. But the benefit for her was that when she got angry with us and was trying to punish us, she would say, "I'm going to go get a switch from that orange tree." And she would chase us around. She never caught us. She was, nobody ever got hit with a switch from the orange tree. But that was one of the great stories. Mm. And it was really kind of a bittersweet thing for me to go through, as I'm sure it was for you, because you feel these memories and it really brings it back.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
Well, mine were all happy memories.
Well, mine too.
And sometime I'll tell you about when my little daughter was going to run away from home.
Oh, no, tell me.
Well, we moved on Jasmine. She was 4 years old. And she got upset because of something. She ordinarily was a very sweet, easy-to-raise child. Mm-hmm. But she said, "I'm just going to run away from home." And I said, "Well, be sure and take everything that you want so you don't have to come back." It was at night. It was dark. So I gave her a great big shopping bag. And she went down to her room, and pretty soon she came back. I don't know what she had in there. But she started out the front door. And we had a street light right outside our house. And I thought, no, don't let her go out there because it's light. She won't get scared. I said, "No, Melanie, if you're going to leave home, you have to leave by the kitchen door. You have to leave by the back door." It was dark in the backyard. So she marched to the back door, and I opened the door, and she looked out, and she turned to me, and she says, "You expect me to go out in that darkness?" So that was the end of her running away from home.
Well, and I think that's what's fun to record for posterity.
They love those stories, yeah.
One of the things that I found in going through photographs, I think, was that, the things we take for granted, for example, today you have strollers that are soft and pliable. When I was a little girl, when I was going through my photographs, here I am in what they called a tailor tot. And so I included that in my writing too, and started putting it together with pictures, because the tailor tot was a metal stroller. It was, I can't believe anybody would put a child in this. It was like putting us in a bucket, and pushing us around. Also, I noticed, for example, that the playpens of today are mesh or some wonderful material that the kids don't
hard wood.
Right, they were wood, absolutely. And so I made sure that I put that in. I found a way to integrate that in so that they could see that. Also, there was a picture of me in front of our TV set. Well, here we are all looking at these big screens now and these great pictures. And our first TV set was this wooden console that had a round picture. In fact, there it is. You can see me in front of it. It was the Stromberg Carlson TV, and on top of it were Daddy's bowling trophies, and that's Daddy down below bowling. And he bowled, and you would probably remember this, right downtown.
Yes, I remember that bowling alley.
At the bowling alley, that was great fun for everybody. But you see through the pictures the clothes that people wore, and you see what was valuable and what. And
not only family history, but you get a bit of history of the whole world, the whole country.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, when I was looking through other photos, I found things like pictures of the ranch where my dad was born, which here they are here. The upper left-hand picture was the Lugo Ranch on what would now be the property where the Roll and Rye is. In fact, Daddy, in his older years after my aunt sold the property, loved to go to the Roll and Rye restaurant and have coffee because he felt like he was home. Down below that, you can see on the right-hand side where he's selling corn at the corn stand that was at the ranch when he was a young man. He was born in 1908 on the Lugo Ranch. He was the youngest of 8 children. And then down below, both left and right side, you can see what the ranch house looked like, and my grandparents, who I never met because they had passed on before my parents were even married. And you can see a little bit of the fields in the one on the right. And then up above that, in the sepia tone one, there's a picture of my dad playing baseball. He used to play semi-pro baseball, and in fact played with guys like Joe Lasculi, who's still around, and they used to play on fields like the one that was on the side of Culver Center.
Well, there was a field too. The Little League field was where the library and the
Emerald Estates is now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The assessor's office was in there for a time. And then Emerald Isles, is that what it's
Emerald
called?
Estates, I think.
Emerald Estates, yeah.
Yeah, and finding things like that, when I was sorting through, what I did first is I found pictures of, I sorted everything into folders so that I could find where everything was. Okay, here's another page that has the landmark Lugo home, and you can see it a little bit better. And then on the lower right, we used to have to dress up because I'm 6th generation Californian, and I used to have to ride in a horse and buggy with my Auntie Vicenta. La Bayona days, yeah.
Yeah, that was another thing that went down Culver Boulevard was that parade every year.
Right.
And also the Armistice Day. It was called Armistice Day then.
Sure, right.
November 11th. Now it's
11th.
Veterans Day.
Yeah.
Every year that parade went down in front of our building.
Yeah, that, in fact, when I was interviewing Jerry Marin, who was the lollipop kid in the Wizard of Oz, he said that they came in on November the 10th and they put them up in the Culver Hotel, and the overflow was at the Adams. And they put them up 3 in a bed because they were such little people. And they woke up in the morning and they were so excited. There was music playing, and they thought, oh my gosh, here we are, all of these little people, and Culver City is welcoming us. And oh well, it was the Armistice Day Parade is what it was, but they got over it. Here are a couple more. There's the corn stand at the Lugo Ranch on the lower left. On the upper right, I found a picture of me playing golf. I wish I'd paid attention then. They had a par 3 golf course where Toys R Us is now, over there at Sawtell and Jefferson. And that's the orange tree in the little patio. So I picked all of those out and then started integrating, got somebody to help me, and included the stories as I fleshed them out. And I really found that to be great fun. I'm probably in trouble with half the family, but it's okay. I didn't tell any negative stories. I just told a lot of fun stuff. There was one that I loved. The picture on the left was my friend Randy and me in front of the house on Farragut where I grew up. Randy and I were born about 6 weeks apart, and since my brother wasn't born for 6 years, we were just like 2 peas in a pod. And the picture on the right is a picture of the living room at the time. And my folks had friends way before they were married, and they stayed friends through the time they were married until us kids were born, and we all had a great time. Well, Fritz, Randy's dad, was doing some work with my dad at home, and Jessie, his mom, and my mom were out shopping. When Jess and my mom came home, the story that's told on this page is that they had left the guys with a charge of waxing the floors in the living room. So they came home and they got the floor waxed okay, but what they needed to do was they needed to buff it. So as it turned out, here they walk in and they're buffing the floor. My dad is pulling Fritz around on a towel, and that's how they buffed the floor.
More than one way to skin a goose.
You got it. We need to be creative. That's the bottom line here. Neighbors like the Briggs family. He's the one who tutored me in math and brought me up to speed. And, I did a part on some of the neighbors and tried to include as much as I could in this. And then I took a couple of classes the local community colleges at West LA and at Santa Monica on bookbinding, and then I did my own binding of the books, which was fun for my nieces.
Well, you know, we still have our Westchester writing group, so if anyone is interested, I encourage everyone to do this. My children weren't too receptive in the beginning until one day they said, we want to go back and see those places that you're writing about.
Oh, that's great.
So we went back in 1997 for 5 days and visited those old haunts.
So now, when somebody comes to the Westchester Y and signs up for the class, what do they need to bring?
Wednesday morning at 9:30.
Okay, and what do they bring?
Themselves. They can bring pencil and paper if they want to, but they're not expected to write the first day unless they already have a story they want to read.
And then how do you encourage them to?
Well, we start out with simple childhood, earliest memories, most vivid memories. We write in the present tense, first person. We relive those moments by writing in the present tense. Makes it all clearer. We remember things.
That's a good point.
Yeah, yeah. So I would encourage everyone for their family, for the grandchildren.
Right, and then they have options like you have pulled things together to publish together.
Well, yeah, we
these
have
different books.
3 group books. Yes.
Well, Maxine, I think that this is great. The River and Beyond was a wonderful book for me to read.
I have enough stories for another one, but I don't think I'll do it.
No, I think I'm finished with it too. Yeah. But it's wonderful to put everything in perspective, and I think that it's a good thing, and it's encouraging.
And mine was a spark that ignited the idea for a family reunion last June back in Illinois.
Terrific.
131 people from all over the country came.
What can I say? And Maxine, we're probably going to have to get you to come back because we have so much to talk about. Thanks so much. And don't forget to write about your family history. It's important.